Welcome back to the channel where we discuss what is good and right and healthy about manhood. And today I want to look at the 20 men who are changing the narrative moving forward about what it looks like to be masculine. Let's go. Masculinity isn't toxic, it's timeless. And across our culture, a quiet resistance has formed. It didn't start with nepotism or fame. It started in humble beginnings with these 20 men. Let's go through the list of the top 20 masculine role models in our modern era. First and foremost on the list at number 20 is Jocko Willink, who for 20 years was a Navy SEAL. He was born in Connecticut in humble beginnings, and he retired to end up doing the Echelon Front Media Company as well as his podcast. Watch a little clip of what he has to say.
All of a sudden something will happen. Some situation will unfold, and I'll go into like war mode, and I just feel so good. It makes me just look around and I just think, I wasn't really supposed to be doing anything else.
Coming in at number 19, probably a little bit of an underdog, is Rudyard Lynch, who was raised in Pennsylvania. He's been a good anthropologist, doing alternative history at first and then entering into real history. He's a Gen Zer who knows a lot about philosophy and the political order, and he most recently predicted an upcoming civil war, essentially, that might happen in the United States. And while that prediction hasn't come true yet, he has been a wonderful voice to those in Gen Z who might need a deeper understanding or crave that deeper knowledge that's out there.
Yes. I never understood how these big corporations cave to criticism because there's no incentive to do so. There's no incentive. It's like Disney as an example. Disney constantly responds to Reddit posts where they say, oh my God, this character's really gay, and this character actually is a symbol of this weird thing that you shouldn't care about. And then Disney legitimately has changed their stories to reflect subreddits, and they haven't yet realized that Reddit is a human swamp.
Coming in at number 18 is the humble Theo Von, who is a podcaster now, has done some comedy, and is just a really very mulleted, genuine man who speaks to men from all over the political spectrum, from all over their backgrounds, a lot of entertainment folks. And he quite simply speaks in a humble way to men about what it looks like to try to endeavor to be a good man today.
I'm not really giving the Lord a chance to tickle me. I'm not really giving, and stay with me. I'm not by saying, okay, I'm not, as soon as this, then this. And then this, as soon as I get my slippers on, my feet will be warm. I'm going to go to daddy's. I'm going to make a pot pie. But only, I ain't having no pot pie till I do the other thing, till I do my, when I have my own plan. Stay with me. What I'm saying is I'm always waiting for everything to be perfect before I live my life.
Number 17 is one you guys might not have heard of. This is Matt Fradd, who started the podcast Pints with Aquinas, and he has come from a background of being addicted to spicy material to converting to Catholicism, and ends up now speaking to a variety of topics, but is a great example of what it looks like to recover into being a man of honor.
Can I tell you how to grow a YouTube channel? I'm going to do that for you right now, okay? Like if you're a Catholic and you want to start a YouTube channel and you want it to take off, here's what you do. Start it and then start criticizing other Catholics by name. Personally attack them. If you do that, great news. Your YouTube channel will skyrocket. So there you go. There's some wisdom for you. The problem is like you might go to hell. And the problem is you kind of trade in your soul. Now, I say this as somebody who has been critical of people on my show in the past, and I've actually repented of this a few times and regretted it as soon as I did it. Now, I'm not saying, when like, for example, the McCarrick scandal comes out and people are talking about it and we continue to talk about it or something like that. Fair enough. But I just really feel called by the Holy Spirit to remove from my mouth any criticism of anybody ever That's what I feel called to.
Number 16 is Konstantin Kisin. He actually is part of the Trigonometry podcast, which is out of the UK. And he came from Ukrainian Russian descent and ended up being an immigrant to the UK. And so he can speak widely on what it looks like to be somebody who values the essence and the basis, the formation of Western civilization, because he's lived in an Eastern Orthodox territory and moved into Western Civ, and he appreciates it and tries to defend it with great vigor. Watch this.
Now, this is, of course, ridiculous. Alexander Solzhenitsyn spent years in a hard labor camp where he endured a starvation diet, brutal punishments, and a complete deprivation of his liberty. I went to a British boarding school. That's where the similarities end. So, what has happened since we were last here? Well, on the positives, let's call it what it is. The tide is turning.
Coming in at number 15 on the list is John Lovell, who's part of the founding of the Warrior Poet Society, and he wrote the book The Warrior Poet Way, which is one of my personal favorites. I recommend it to a lot of my clients to read because it is a great demonstration of what it looks like to be an honorable man, but also to fight for our rights, like our Second Amendment rights here in the United States. Watch a clip
However,
from him.
I think a lot of the best stuff in life isn't the warrior stuff. It isn't the protecting. The protecting is a means to an end, but the in and of itself is the enjoyment. It's the romance. It's the adventure. It's the majesty, the beauty, the awe. It's the stuff the poets know intrinsically. And so to be a full-bodied, vibrant man, you really need to camp out in both categories or you're deficient in all.
Number 14 is possibly another underdog people might not have heard of. He goes by the alias Sargon of Akkad online, but he is Carl Benjamin out of the UK, the founder of the Lotus Eaters podcast, and a great orator of what it looks like to hold to conservative values, but a former classical liberal who entered into the fray, coming out of being a game developer. All he wanted to do was play video games. Now watch what he looks like.
It'd be a lot physically tougher, and the punishments would be a lot rougher. And yet, this was good for their character, right? And now we're in a particularly feminized paradigm where now it's like, oh, well, we need to drug the boys. We need to give them, they've got ADHD, you see. They need.
Number 13 comes out of the Virginia House of Delegates, and that is Nick Freitas. He also has founded the Making the Argument podcast with his wife and friend Christian Hines. He has been a great Army veteran who came into the fray, into politics, to try to make a difference when he saw the need and the collapsing structures of integrity that were collapsing within our political society. Watch a clip from his delicious, and you've probably seen him on Instagram quite a bit because he gets hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views in a lot of his posts there, because he makes very brief, very concise, great arguments for conservatism, but also for just having an honorable way of life.
All right, so the first thing that you need to know as a father is you need to tell your daughter that you love her, right? Now, inevitably, whenever I talk about this and other content, people will always come in and feel duty-bound to remind me that, well, you also have to show her. Yeah, I know that, right? There's all sorts of ways that you show your daughter that you love her. Some of it is doing the things that dads are supposed to do, like protecting and providing for the family. The reason why I tell men you need to say it is because a lot of times men expect other people to understand that all of those things that we go through in order to protect, in order to provide, in order to make sure that you have the things you need, that's one of the ways that we say, I love you.
Coming in at number 12 is this father of 6, Matt Walsh. Now, he is obviously the controversial author, controversial speaker who was responsible for the What is a Woman documentary, sort of a mockumentary. He has been a great political activist as he pushed in his home state and then on into Virginia to try to make a difference, especially in certain sectors of the political discourse.
Mr. Walsh, you're recognized. My experience in healthcare.
Your educational background. I'm just curious. You've testified as to a lot of your own research. So I'm curious for what purpose you do that and what background you have to qualify you to speak to that.
Well, my background that qualifies me to speak to this is that I'm a human being with a brain and common sense, and I have a soul. And so, therefore, I think it's a really bad idea to chemically castrate children. That is my experience. Also, I did, now it's true, I didn't go to college, but I did go to school long enough to learn how to read, so I can read the data for myself, and that's exactly what I've done.
Coming in at number 11 is the classical liberal Tom Bilyeu, who is the creator of Quest Nutrition. So you see the Quest bars that are in gas stations, and he ended up founding, multi-million, hundreds of millions of dollars companies and valued companies. And he is a great example of what it looks like to vastly and vehemently defend liberty and classical liberty, like such as was used in the founding of our country. And he has a great inspirational podcast where he speaks to the problems of our current era and how that relates to business, even all the way to crypto. Watch
Literally
this.
like the bird. You could fly anywhere you want. You can go anywhere you want to go. And look, I know you've got a litany of excuses, and all of them are valid. You've got a job, you can't just leave, or you don't have a job and you don't have the money. Your family is in one place. It's the only thing that you've ever known. You only speak one language. You've never traveled before. You don't have a passport. You can't afford the gas money. There are 1,000 real reasons not to go. But the truth is that none of them matter. The truth is, if you want to build something in your life, that you have to remember what Mark Twain said. You have to get started, because at the end of the day, that is literally the only thing that's holding you back.
Number 10 is the son of an immigrant, Alex Hormozy, who also is a multi-million dollar founder of companies in our modern era. And his short clips that sort of summarize stoicism and how that relates to our modernity are so good and so useful for young men to see and to be inspired by. Plus, he's in pretty good shape. Watch
Every
this.
single person who wants to do something with their life and has done something with their life has gone through the exact chapter that you're going through. And it's the lonely chapter. It's the chapter where you don't fit in with your own friends, but you don't have the outcomes yet to fit into a new group of friends. And you're doing this thing, you're consuming content on the internet, you're doing these free tutorials online to try and figure out how to set up a podcast and where do I host this thing? And then and you're going through this and you're like, is this even worth it? Because you have no signs of success, right? But if there's anything that you can take away from what we're saying right now, is that the sign of success is the hate that you get along the way. And what you can't do is bend the knee to their hate and fit back into the conformity because it's comfortable and it's warm. Because like in the Matrix, when Trinity opens the door, when Neo's about to go take the red pill and he wants to get out of the car, she says, Neo, you've been down that road and you know exactly where it leads. And I know that's not where you want to be.
Coming in at number 9 on the list is Brandon Tatum. Now, Officer Tatum has been a radio host. He's been on Fox News quite a bit, but he also is an ex-police officer who knows about some of the political discourse surrounding law enforcement in our current era. And he currently hosts a show on YouTube and speaks to young men about some of the cultural differences between his culture, how he was raised, and entering into the political discourse for those that he represents. He lives in Arizona, and I know he has a wife and I think a very relatively small child. God bless him for what he does. He's also a great defender of the faith.
A lot of what I was thinking about was being in a relationship and being married and all of that. It consumed a lot of the things that I thought about. But I want to give you guys some guidance to do it the right way. You should be purpose-driven first. Find out who you are. Find out what you like, what your interests are, so you can better navigate the person that you will have in your life. If you go on a date, young women, and that brother asks you to split the bill.
Number 8 is the man who probably won the election more than anyone else on behalf of Donald Trump in the last election cycle, and that is Charlie Kirk, a man who defends the fact that he forewent going to higher education in order to just build his activist organization, TPUSA, Turning Point USA, all without a college education. And he is going onto college campuses and persistently following through to just represent conservatism and Christianity and what it means to have common sense.
Right?
Watch this.
And it's just, you don't think you're actually going to get there because we've been programmed to just say that like powerful people get what they want, right? And yeah, he was 1 millimeter from this whole country just going into bedlam. And what if one of these trials would have went differently, right? What if Jack Smith would have rushed his cases and like a million different things, right? And there you go, and you hear the words that Donald Trump is president-elect. I just, again, glory be to God is all I can say.
Coming in at number 7 is Tim Pool. He is one of the originators of this type of new journalism on YouTube. And he most recently was in the White House as one of the guest journalists in the White House to represent something other than the mainstream media. He has been the founder of Timcast and really was just a classical liberal or libertarian who was a skater. And listen, if you just had left all these guys alone, they probably wouldn't have stepped into the discourse. But he recognized things were getting bad and he entered into the fray. Watch this.
Room have marched in lockstep on false narratives such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland Man hoax, where an MS-13 gang member adjudicated by 2 different judges, I believe, is just simply being referred to as a Maryland man over and over again. Now, in an effort from the White House to expand access to new companies, you've created this new media seat. So I'm wondering if you can comment on, following this expansion, you've had numerous outlets disparage the companies that you've had sit here, as well as the reporters. I'm wondering if you could comment on that unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies.
Sure. Well,
coming in at number 6 is one of the people I personally like to listen to the most, and that's Chris Williamson. He is the podcast host of the Modern Wisdom podcast, which tackles a lot of topics about culture and psychology, but he started out as one of the bros on a show called Love Island, I think UK, where he was like a bachelor in waiting for one of these dating type shows. And he took that from being that into a nightclub promoter and into eventually being one of the wisest men that you can listen to online. I don't agree with everything he has to offer, but I do love his take on modernity.
Imitate your work. They only know the what, but not the why. If you stopped being creative, so would they. A photocopier isn't an artist, even if it can recreate the Mona Lisa. Reminder that if you want to be exceptional, you're going to be different from everyone else. That's what makes you exceptional. You can't fit in and also be exceptional. Both have discomfort. When you fit in, you have internal conflict because you're not being 100% you. When you're exceptional, you have external conflict because everyone sees you as different. Pick one. When your friends start to say, "You've changed," remember it's because they don't know how to say, "You've grown."
Coming in at number 5 is Lex Friedman, a former Soviet Russian resident and an immigrant also. He has his podcast where he interviews in long form, much like the Joe Rogan podcast. He interviews in long form so many influential voices, but his cadence and the way that he slowly delivers with a velvet hammer so much wisdom is a great listen. Again, not in agreement with all of his takes or all of his ideas, but a great way to demonstrate how manhood can come in a strange package. And also, I believe he's an expert in jiu-jitsu. Watch a little bit from what he has to say.
And say F you to anybody that wants to control you or to tell you what to do. Just be free and then put love out there in the world and doors open. This karma thing seems to work.
Coming in at number 4 is Andrew Huberman. He is a neuro-ophthalmologist out of Stanford University as a professor, and he has the Huberman Lab, which is one of the greatest health assistants that you could ever want. He covers a variety of topics from addiction to psychology to brains and how sunlight in your eyes is effective, how cold plunges are effective. And I believe personally he's restoring testosterone one health tip at a time to mankind.
Dressed as comfort. Most people don't realize how much of their life is dictated by the inner conversations they never questioned. You wake up in the morning and the voice in your head already has something to say. Sometimes it's self-doubt, sometimes it's worry, sometimes it's laziness dressed as comfort. But here's the truth. If you don't choose to master your mind, that voice becomes your master. And if that voice is full of fear, limitations, and excuses, so will your life be. Mastering your mind isn't about pretending to be positive all the time. It's about taking full control over your internal narrative. It's about becoming aware of the subtle ways your mind tries to keep you safe by keeping you small.
Number 3, of course, is Joe Rogan, who built the most successful podcast, the most listened to podcast that's out there today. And the way that he delivers his classical liberal take is so refreshing, and he sticks to his guns, but he's also open to learning. Watch a little bit from his best clips.
You are not your past. You're you. You're you right now. You might have done some things you wish you hadn't done. Don't dwell on that. You learn from it, that's fine, but don't dwell on it. Just keep moving. Keep moving. Use it as fuel. Say never again. I get what I did wrong, but don't think that you're that person that made those mistakes. You're the person who's learned. I think that endurance, enduring something, and building up that ability to endure things, that's also a very important mechanism that you could apply to everyday life. Like that, the mechanism of understanding how to endure. Because a lot of people are just running from discomfort. They're running from it. They're just avoiding it. So easy to. And like if you get distracted for a second, you're like, let me check my phone. You just start going through your phone and looking at bullshit, and you're just distracting yourself from the tiniest frustration of boredom.
Number 2 on the list is Thomas Sowell, and while he isn't necessarily in the new media landscape per se, he was a former Marxist who entered into higher universities in the Ivy Leagues and it ended up being an economist who is one of the most based individuals. And if everybody read a little Thomas Sowell, they would probably, we would have a whole different world right now, because he's a genius. He also has a lot to say about cultural conservatism. Watch a little bit. He's still alive in his 90s, making media on YouTube. Watch it.
It does. I see less of it than you do.
I'm willing to believe that because you've said so. I've been asking you for it, and I haven't gotten any of it. So I'm perfectly willing to agree with you on that.
But,
gentlemen, we have 1 minute.
The major piece of empirical evidence that I think you've cited this hour has really been the contrast between the 60s and the 70s.
No, it's been the contrast between well-off people and badly off people. And that's true in other countries as well, that in Malaysia, where they've had affirmative action for the same amount of time, it's had the same results. It has done nothing for the poor Malays. The lowest level of Malays receive a smaller percentage of all the income received by Malays today than before this program was put into effect, as is true of blacks in the United States.
Is it worth?
Lastly on the list of the new media influencers is Jordan B. Peterson, who, while he has several things that make people mad from all different spectrums of politics, he also is one of the best orators of common sense and has attacked a lot of the ideologies that were going against manhood and masculinity. And so for that, he still maintains the number 1 slot. Watch this.
Freedom of speech in that. Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm very glad that I have exercised my freedom of speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on. And that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
Except you haven't sat there and
in ways that are untold and will carry into generations far beyond this. Now, there's probably hundreds of people who could have made this list, some honorable mentions that I could have done, but these men have all influenced me to say that I can step out from behind the curtain and say what's true and what leads to common sense in how it relates to manhood and masculinity. God bless all of them, and thank you for watching. Here on this channel, we try to tell the truth, and we try to give men a platform that gives their allowance of being masculine and having what's good and right about masculinity come to the fore in our modern culture. If this is any value to you, please like and subscribe, and thank you so much. It means the most.